All right, good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I hope you guys had a great weekend, a little extra time. I hope you were able to reflect on Martin Luther King at some point, even though we have not really discussed him. He is a great and inspiring person. So, semester one is in the books. Congratulations, you guys. You are done with your first semester of college. Now, am I going to accept credit? What does that mean? Like, all those questions will be answered as soon as I get the answers myself from UT. But we'll be accepting or denying credit in the next couple weeks, like the next week. But we have to start with semester two, which is what we're going to start with today. And that is American identity. So we have some words to talk about. We're going to talk about sentence types, and then I have a documentary that you guys are going to watch. You can either watch it with me or on your own. I suspect most of you will want to watch it on your own because my computer is kind of glitchy, but we'll see. Okay, so let's start. We've got some keywords here. And so first, I want you to think about the word American. Like what does that word mean? Technically, American means you're from the United States. It has to do with or relate to the United States, okay? But what does it mean to be an American? I mean, really, what does that mean? Just think about that for a half a minute. Yeah, I think Americans we certainly value freedom and believe we are a country built on freedom. We talk about our freedoms. The word freedom is written into so many of our founding documents. Independent. There's a lot of things, and not all of them are good, right? Not everybody has I guess I should have said this initially, but let me say it now. This isn't what the right answer is. This is what the right answer for you is. And your right answer isn't necessarily going to be the same as mine. In fact, it's probably not, because we have such different worldviews. I am a 45-year-old white woman. None of you guys are that. So your view on the world and our situation and what it means to be American is going to be very different than mine, right? And it should be. So just don't feel like there's one right answer. There's not. Okay, the next word is identity. And that is being what something is, or the characteristics of determining what that thing is. So what is your identity? And we use that word a lot today, don't we? Identity. What do you identify as? What's your identity? We've used it, though, for, decades, for centuries. The secret identities of superheroes, Who are you? So this entire semester, we will be studying the rhetoric of American identity, what it means, what the characteristics are of being American, and your interpretation of that. And we are going to look at that through the lens or the filter of gender or race or ethnicity, okay? So what does it mean to be American through gender? And traditionally, gender are the two sexes, male and female. But we use that term gender to mean lots of things too. And we use that term gender to talk about individuals who don't necessarily identify as male or female, or maybe who do identify as male or female, but were assigned a different sex at birth. So what does it mean to be an American in terms of gender, right? And I'm a 45-year-old white woman. So my view on gender in America, what does it mean to be a woman in America? This is going to be different for y'all. I was actually talking with my daughter about this the other day, and I said, until 4 years ago, I really thought a woman could be president, but Hillary lost that election, and I'm not 100% confident that I'll see a female president in my lifetime. Tomorrow we'll see a female vice president, which is great. But I'm not sure I'll see a female president. And Lizzie looked at me and said, yeah, a woman can be president. So our views on what a woman can be in America are different. You know, she's very confident and I am less so, right? And part of that is because of my experiences growing up in my life. Okay, so another lens or filter that we can look through is race. And race are those major groupings of humankind. So we have white, Anglo, we have Asian, we have Native American, and we have Black, right? So those are kind of the major groupings. And what does it look like to be a Native American? Well, that probably looks really different than it does to be a white American, a white male American. What does it look like to be a Black American? What does it look like to be Asian in America today, right? And then we have, Eldon, I love your puppy. We're talking about puppies today. And then we have ethnicity. And ethnicity is that social group with the common cultural tradition. So you guys have probably run into this question if you are Hispanic, or even if you're not Hispanic, you've probably seen it. It asks you what your race is, and it doesn't list Hispanic or Latino as a race at all. Megan has a puppy too. Oh my gosh, and Megan's puppy matches her shirt, and Eldon's puppy matches his shirt. It's just amazing. The questions will say, what race are you? And then it'll ask you what your ethnicity is. And that's because the Hispanic ethnicity or cultural group is considered white. That doesn't make a lot of, sense to a lot of people, but that's just whoever designed the groupings. That's how they designed it. So either one is fine, but what does it mean to be a Hispanic in America today? What do any of these things mean? And again, your experience is going to give you a very different perspective. Okay, are you guys with me so far? Okay, so I wanted to talk to you guys about sentence types because one of the comments that several students got from their graders was to vary your sentence types, or you're writing too many simple sentences, or you have, your sentences aren't correct, you've got too many commas in them. So let's talk about we're just going to go back and do some grammar, okay? What are the different types of sentences? Hang on just one moment for me, my darlings. Hi.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, well, you know what? Yeah. Yeah, I'm having that kind of day, so yeah.
I didn't, you can warm it up.
All of my kiddos are at MBK right now.
Is that where they are?
Yeah, they're all at MBK.
Do we have anything that you can take home?
Oh my
We have
God.
to do it for the family.
Okay, yeah, those.
Okay, so let me get that.
Oh, yeah, that one just goes to person.
I'm happy.
I mean, just love a loaf of bread.
Yes, that's great.
I actually brought two for lunch today, so how nice of
That
it.
would be, I
I want to take out right now.
Okay. It goes right on close that way.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. I'm putting here.
Are you not?
Okay,
Well, have a
there's.
great day.
Yeah, you too.
Sorry, everybody. Okay. All right, so let's start with the beginning. We have 4 main types of sentences, and this is interactive. You guys are going to do this with me, okay? We're going to do this together. So, you've got the simple sentence, a compound sentence, a complex sentence, and a compound complex sentence. If you guys are anything like me, then you know what a simple sentence is. I'm sharing the wrong thing. I don't even know what I'm sharing. Oh yeah, okay. Sorry. I'm so sorry, my darlings. I've been sharing the wrong thing the whole time. Okay. Here we go. Nope. Share this one instead. I'm so sorry, darlings. Give me just one more minute. You guys must have been confused about what I was talking about. Here we go. Okay. So we've got if you are anything like me, then you know what a simple sentence is, and you probably know what a compound sentence is. And you might know what a compound complex sentence is, or a complex sentence. You've heard of them, but you're not quite sure how to use them. So let's look. A sentence is made up of words, clauses, and phrases. It's just a bunch of words strung together. A simple sentence is an independent clause. It has a subject and a verb. Somebody or something is doing something. Okay? That's it. One subject, one verb. What I want you guys to do right now is I want you to go into our Google Classroom. Under classwork, you'll see a new topic. It's called American Identity. And underneath it, you'll see sentence types. So I would like you to open that up right now. Okay, it looks like this. And then you're going to click on sentence types, and everybody is going to have a set of Google Slides. So go ahead and pull that up. Okay, everybody should have that pulled up. And it should look like this. American Identity through sentence types. And go to the first slide, and you'll see the puppies. And what I want us to do is I want us to write a simple sentence. Okay? So we're going to do that together. Simple sentence. The puppy barks. We have something, a puppy, doing something, an action. They're barking. Now, we can add words to this if we like, right? The golden puppy barks. The tiny puppy sits. We can change that however we want, but at the end of the day, we have one thing doing something. That's a simple sentence, okay? What I want you to do in the box beneath this simple sentence is I want you to write a simple sentence about American identity. Somebody doing something, okay? Your own simple sentence. Okay, let me know when you guys get that done. Okay, Alden's done. Okay. All right, even if you're not done, you can go back to that later to fill it in. Let's look at a compound sentence. So a compound sentence are two of those simple sentences, two of those independent clauses, a noun and a verb, and a noun and a verb. And they are joined together with a coordinating conjunction. So a coordinating conjunction, those we call fanboys. And you may or may not have heard of fanboys before. Let me show you what they are. Here we go. Okay. So fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Okay. Those are the words we use to join sentences together. So we're going to do that right now in our, y'all, every time I try to switch tabs, it doesn't let me. It's very annoying. I'm so sorry. Okay, so now we're going to try that with our compound sentence, okay? So my simple sentence was the golden puppy sits. Sits. I'm going to put a comma, and I'm going to put a conjunction, and his sister next to him. There we go. The golden puppy sits, and his sister sits next to him. But I could change that. To, you know, anything else I wanted. The golden puppy sits. I could say the two puppies sit.
Hey, miss. Sorry for being here late. I had to take my dog out to the yard. So.
We are actually talking about dogs, David. Okay, so if you go into classwork in our Google Classroom, you will see something called sentence types. Go ahead and pull that up, and we are on the second slide, the compound sentence slide.
All right.
And we're practicing that. A compound sentence is when you join two sentences together with a fanboy.
Okay.
Okay, so there you go. You can't see it, but the two puppies sit and the children run and play. That's another example of a compound sentence. I have to have in my first clause a noun and a verb. Puppy sits. And I have to have in my second clause a noun and a verb. Sister sits. Two puppies sit, children run and play. So I've got that. I've got my noun, verb, noun, verb. Okay, so now I want you to write your own sentence or attempt it with American identity. Okay. Let's look at our next slide. This is a complex sentence. A complex sentence is a little bit harder because you don't have two independent clauses. What you have is one independent clause, just a regular sentence, and you have a dependent clause. A dependent clause means it cannot stand on its own. It's not a complete thought. It's missing the subject, or it's missing the verb, or something is happening with it to make this not a complete thought. Often what happens is we put a subordinating conjunction. It's kind of a fancy way of saying one of these words that I've got listed on the slide. And those words take that independent thought and they kind of leave you hanging, right? So remember, our first sentence was the puppy sits. If I add the word after in front of it, listen to what happens. After the puppy sits, you guys waiting for the rest of that sentence? Don't you want to know what happens? After the puppy sits cannot stand on its own. If I say, once the puppy sits, you're still waiting for the rest of the sentence. While the puppy sits, unless the puppy sits. So all of these words take those independent sentences, those independent clauses, and they make them dependent. All right. And when you put a dependent clause together with an independent clause, now you have what we call a complex sentence, okay? This is like the higher form of writing. And so when your graders are asking you to write at a higher level, they're asking for these types of sentences, these complex sentences. So let's do one together, and then I'll let you guys practice. So here we go. Back to our slides. If we go to a complex sentence, okay. While the puppies sit, comma, the owner takes a picture. So the puppies sit is independent, but when I add while in front of it, that makes it dependent. It's not a complete thought. While the puppies sit, I'm waiting for the rest of the thought. The owner takes a picture, that is a complete thought. Subject, verb, owner taking a picture. So when I put these two together, I now have a complex sentence. When I put the dependent clause in front, it gets a comma. If I put the dependent clause second, it doesn't get a comma. It would look like this. Okay. So if the dependent clause goes first, it gets a comma. If it goes last, there is no comma. Okay, last thing we're going to do with this, and that is the hardest type of sentence, the most complicated type of sentence, and that is the compound complex sentence. So that's just putting it all together. That's taking your compound sentence, that sentence joined with fanboys, right? The puppy sits, comma, and his sister sits next to him. And it's adding in one of those complex sentences, one of those dependent clauses with that subordinating conjunction. So you're putting it all together. And this is the kind of highest form of sentence writing. So let's look at it. Let me share that screen. So just give me 1 minute. Okay, so for our last sentence type, we have while the owner takes a picture, the puppy sits and his sister sits next to him. So here's my dependent clause, while the owner takes a picture, because that can't stand on its own. It's not a complete thought. Here's my main sentence, the puppy sits. And then here's another main clause that makes this a compound sentence. His sister sits next to him. And I have joined that with the comma and the conjunction and. I could write it differently. Okay, and I wouldn't put a comma here because now my dependent clause comes at the end of the sentence. But I do still have to have my comma before the conjunction because I'm joining those two independent clauses. Okay, how are we doing? All right, so in your writing, you want to try and use all 4 of these sentence types, and they all do different things in your writing. They're all really important. When you're talking about a complicated subject, a complex sentence or a more complicated sentence would be appropriate. When you're trying to really make a clear point, a simple sentence is very effective for that, right? So now that you know these different types of sentences, I'd like you to start practice using them in your writing. And yeah, okay. But that's not the only thing we have to do today. Our first paper is due in about a month, okay? And it is a rhetorical analysis where we look at the rhetoric of somebody else who is writing about American identity. And again, you guys can pick kind of what you're focused on. Are you going to look at the American identity through gender, through race, or through ethnicity? So to get us started kind of thinking about what it means to be an American in terms of those issues, I have a documentary I'd like us to watch. It's called 13th. It's a documentary that's on Netflix, but if you don't have Netflix, don't worry. I have a website where you can watch this documentary for free. So join me in Google Classroom, and I want to go over, it's called 13th in Google Classroom. And let's take a look at this assignment. Okay, so in Google Classroom, go ahead and click on 13th. And you guys will see some slides. And let's go over those slides together. There we go, okay. 13th. Okay. So as you're watching the documentary, there are 5 things I want you guys to think about. And the first one is the legacy of slavery. 13th is about the 13th Amendment. And so I want you to think about what's the underlying motive for the 13th Amendment, leaving a loophole for slave labor. Were you aware that the 13th Amendment still allows for some forms of slavery? Look at the next question. Before watching, this is the politics of mass incarceration. Before watching this documentary, were you aware that both political parties were complicit? That means they both allowed this to happen in creating the conditions that led to mass incarceration. In mass incarceration, we're talking about prison. African American representation. How do you think the media and popular culture represents Black Americans, particularly Black men? And how has that contributed to the climate of white fear and anxiety? How has that affected tough on crime policy? Black stigma. How do you think the media has contributed to the dangerous Black man narrative? And finally, the humanity of statistics. This film is full of statistics. Many of them are startling. What statistics stood out to you the most? Why do you think this is? What will you do with this statistic? Okay, so this is for you guys to complete as you're watching or after you've watched the documentary. Okay, where can you find the documentary? If you look at our Google Classroom, under 13th, I've got a link to the documentary right there. If you have Netflix, it's on Netflix and you can just watch it on Netflix, okay? So as long as you have access to the internet, you should be able to stream this documentary, okay? If for some reason you cannot, I just need you guys to let me know and I'll come up with some sort of alternative assignment for you guys, all right? But your job is to watch this documentary and then respond to those questions when it's over. I will show the documentary live in our classroom, but you really might want to watch it on your own because when I stream stuff live, it gets really glitchy, right? If you would just go to the website and watch it on your own, you'd be able to watch it and control it at your own pace and pause it where you need to. Okay, so does anybody have any questions for me? Okay, then between now and next class, what I'd like you to do is watch the documentary and take notes on it. If you're going to stay with me to watch it, I'll start it in just a couple of minutes, okay? If you leave me, which is totally fine, have a great day. Don't forget to turn in the sentences and to turn in the questions. If you did not get the sentences because you came late, one more time.